Hi there, Namaste. Today's topic is Harmonic Astrology. We're having an introduction to Harmonic Astrology, and we're using the Series 1.3 software, and we're looking at the chart wheel of Steffi Graf, one of the greatest female tennis players of all time. So there's her birth chart. It's from a birth certificate, and she has a remarkable chart in that she is what we would say in astrology, triple Gemini. Her sun, 22 degrees Gemini, her moon, almost 14 degrees Gemini, and her ascendant, 26 degrees of Gemini, are all in Gemini, and her Mercury's in Gemini. So this is about as Gemini as you can get. Some astrologers like to say, well, that's not so important. Look at the ruler of the ascendant, the ruler of the ascendant, the ruler of the ascendant. Okay, so we look at the ruler of the ascendant. It's Mercury. It's in Gemini. There's no way out of this. Steffi Graf is Miss Gemini. So she should be the poster child of Gemini. Talk real fast like this and be all over the place and like a motor mouth and all versatile and blah, 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 butterfly. So is she? Now I know this is simplistic and so on. You know, we're just having fun here. Okay, so now, well, I don't know how simplistic it is, actually. I mean, she is triple Gemini with the ruler of ascendant Gemini. So, but anyway, there are a lot of things to look at and a lot of ways people look at astrology. So what is Steffi Graf like? Well, I have here on a website, here's the website URL if you're interested. And I saw this in many places in her descriptions of Steffi. Here's what it says. I highlighted it here. Maybe I should unhighlight it. Maybe it's easier to read. Well, let me highlight it. Whatever. I don't know if you have trouble reading that, but I'll read it to you. It says, what are the first words in your mind when you think about Steffi Graf? Is it discipline, professionalism, hard work, sportsmanship, respect, courage, determination, perseverance, or all of the above? Well, this is a rhetorical question. In other words, those are the adjectives often used for Steffi Graf. She's just highly disciplined, very professional, hard work. One website said she had dignity, quiet dignity, respect, courage. It says she was and probably is an extraordinary athlete who combined fantastic natural abilities with unbreakable mental toughness. Now down here, it says one of her first coaches was Boris Breskver, a Slovenian tennis coach who taught in Germany. I read a short report he wrote when he was working with Boris Becker, and he insisted on hard work and discipline. But what shocks you the most is what he said about Steffi Graf's discipline. It was incredible even for his standards. So Steffi was famous for this. She would get off a plane, arriving at a major tennis match, quietly go down the steps of the plane, right to the practice area. She didn't talk a lot. She just focused. So this guy on his website says, discipline means staying focused on the task. You need to put on blinders, decide what your goal is, go for it. Everything else is a waste of your time and talent. So that is one of the big keys to Steffi's huge success. Now, it doesn't fit. If we go back to Steffi's chart, it doesn't really fit all this Gemini, and you might say, oh, she's got Saturn and Taurus, and so that makes her, have steadfast, so on, but, people for 2.5 years are going to have Saturn and Taurus. So why is she so much this way, and why is she such a great athlete? Well, I'll show you how I use harmonics. There aren't a lot of people who rely on harmonics, and the few who do have different ideas sometimes. But I look to the 7th harmonic. That's the chart I see as disciplined focus. So whenever I hear discipline and quiet and introverted and all these things that Steffi is, practice, I think of 7th harmonic. Now, so we look at the 7th harmonic. There's something called a harmonic chart that shows us the details. But before we get into that, we need to make sure we have the right orbs. So I will right-click on this wheel, And I'll click on Customize. I'll click on the Aspects tab. And here are the orbs, and I can click on Customize this aspect set and see what all the details are. But over here we have harmonic orbs, and I can take the medium, major only, means if I had an aspect grid, and in the well, basically it means in the chart wheel only the aspect lines for major aspects are shown, and so it looks quite a bit different, doesn't it? When I use that aspect set, the orbs are different. If I go back to this, well, it's not that different. They're just thicker. This particular aspect set, where was it? Harmonic, medium, major only. If the aspect is stronger, it makes the line thicker. And it looks like I've got aspects to the node. I might turn that off on the other screen. So you want to use harmonic orbs. You have to use harmonic orbs. Harmonic orbs means as the aspect goes into a higher harmonic, the orbs must get proportionally smaller. They have to, because if you're using this wave theory. And the basic idea of harmonic astrology is that an aspect is a fraction of a circle. So a trine is 1/3 of a circle, a sextile is 1/6 of a circle, and so we look at aspects as fractions of a circle. A square is a 1/4 of a circle, so you can call it a 1/4 aspect. And we use all kinds of fractions. That's the big difference. You use lots and lots of fractions, not just a few. What do I want to do? I want to go to Customize and simplify this. Let's not have aspect lines to Chiron and North Node. Let's remove those. There. It just focused just on the aspects between the planets. Not that those are definitely not important, but it makes it easier to see the aspects here without so many lines. Okay, so I save this and say OK, and there's my wheel style. And she does have that Mars quincunx Saturn, so that could have a lot to do with it. And notice it's pretty exact. So maybe that's where all this discipline comes, and maybe that overpowers all this Gemini. So these are things that I feel very keen about, that we need to look at actual charts and test our ideas. So let me show you her 7th harmonic chart. Go over here and click on harmonic chart, and I click on 7, and I click OK. And this word harmonic may scare you, and what's a harmonic chart and all this stuff. Well, I'm just going to give you an idea of some of the things we can do with harmonics, or claim we can do, without going into too much of the technical detail. But basically what happens in a harmonic chart, well, let me right click, go to Customize. I want to change something here, go to Aspects, customize this aspect set, and let me turn something off, and I say okay, don't worry about what I'm doing, I'm just removing something. Okay, so I've removed that. There were a bunch of numbers in here, and I didn't want to confuse. I just removed all those numbers. I'll explain in a minute what I removed. In series you can customize very quickly. I just went and removed that, and I'll put it back on in a second. But the harmonic chart shows you that if two planets are conjunct, they actually have that number in the denominator. So Moon and Jupiter are together here, so they must be 1/7, 2/7, or 3/7 of a circle. And these sevenths make the planets introverted. And let me show you what I had turned on here. If I right click and I go to Customize, just drag this up a little bit into the space being captured for the video here, and I go to Aspects, and I go to Customize this aspect set, there's a feature that we have, drag this down so you can see all this, called Natal Aspect Shown on Aspect Line in Harmonic Chart. This tells you what this means, but I'll explain it to you. This is a very handy feature, because what this does, I'm going to save this and say OK and OK, is that it tells you what the aspect is in the natal chart. Now, there's so many aspects, it's a little hard to read, and that's why one of the reasons why I don't use this wheel style. I'll right-click the wheel style that I use is this one, because it has a bigger ring. Well, still there's a lot of overlap, and might be better even if this wheel was bigger. But anyway, it's nice to have that big ring in the middle to see the aspects better. It's a little hard to see, but what it's saying is that Moon and Jupiter are 2 sevenths. There's a 2-7 there. So they are in a seventh, and you see that there's a huge pattern going on where Pluto is at 7 degrees of Leo, Moon and Jupiter at 7 degrees Virgo. Neptune is at 6.5, just a little bit before 7, of Scorpio. And Saturn is at 6.5 of Sagittarius, and then Mars a little bit later at late 8 degrees. So a lot of planets between 6 and 8 degrees. And what you're ending up with, as a result, is you have 30 degrees from Pluto to the Moon and Jupiter, 60 to Neptune, and then another 30 to Saturn, and a little more than 30 to get to Mars, and you have all these planets at about the same degree. And you end up with Pluto. What we have here is Pluto is square Neptune, the Moon Jupiter is square Saturn. We have trines. We have the Saturn trine Pluto, the Moon Jupiter trine Mars, and the sextiles and the semi-sextiles, all these things in 30 degrees making a huge pattern. What does it mean? Well, what it means is that any planets aspected in the 7th harmonic chart have this quiet, focused discipline. So what we have with Steffi is Moon and Jupiter conjunct in the 7th harmonic makes the person quiet, instead of the Jupiter making them highly expressive and outgoing and bubbly. It makes them have respect and dignity, a warmth that radiates. If you're up close with the person, they're humble, they're quiet. There's a kind of dignity with Moon Jupiter, because the friendliness and warmth and expansiveness comes through this disciplined, quiet, and mature way. And then that Moon and Jupiter trine Mars, Mars trine Jupiter means the ability to achieve big things through discipline and being harmoniously disciplined, because it's a trine. So there's a grace, a sophistication, and the person is able to work hard, go for big goals. Moon Mars is competitive spirit, liking action, liking to win, through regular practice. So we see the Moon Jupiter trine Mars describing her personality, describing her lifestyle, just quiet, humble, practice, focus, and she enjoys it. The Mars is trine the Moon, competitive, not through an explosive way, not through an ego way, but just by perfecting the game. You'll see the Saturn is trine Pluto, the austerity, the sacrifice that's required for this level of excellence, and it's almost an exact trine. So all these planets all tied together creates this huge pattern, which is what we expect from her personality and her activity. So that's, this may be a little hard to believe if you're an astrologer and you say, oh my God, I can make sense of out of anything, these crazy, wacky people with all their numbers, you're going way over the top. I know it's, hear that a lot. I know that this is a very different way of thinking about how astrology might work and what's happening. But what do we know? We're just little mortals, and nobody's, astrology's a mystery. It's there's, in India they use sidereal zodiac. We use tropical zodiac. Astrology is the most controversial, crazy thing going on. We don't even know what it is. Some people think it's divination, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's crazy. So I think, an open mind is good, and this is just another approach based on these fine patterns. And, I've made a good argument anyway that it might be making sense for Steffi. I just noticed she's got Saturn conjunct the ascendant. That's pretty severe and rigorous, disciplined approach, because that means that this is all in the vibration of 7, of inner focus and quiet discipline, which is Steffi. When I saw her 7th harmonic chart, I said, "Oh my God, she must be, misdisciplined there, and probably humble and quiet, because I didn't really know anything about her other than I knew her name and she was a great tennis player." And sure enough, it was true. So you get that confirmation. Okay, so this is an idea of harmonics. This feature in Sirius, that you can see what the aspect is in the natal chart, is very helpful. I'll give you an example of another successful athlete in a sport that requires discipline, and that's Michelle Kwan, the skater. These are superstar athletes. I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to just do this real fast. I read in her chart, I say okay, I just did all that very quickly using what we call hotkeys, alt letter anyway, rather than the mouse. So I brought up Michelle's chart, and there she is. I've saved the settings for this wheel style, so I've got the harmonic aspects, the correct aspects, and this is her natal chart, and we notice she's got Mercury at 22 degrees, Uranus at 21 degrees, Saturn also 21, actually these are late 21, almost 22, this is early 22 degrees, very tight, trine, sextile, Mercury, Saturn, Uranus. And then, well, Moon over here at 17, a little bit weaker, involved a little bit. But it's very striking, Mercury, Saturn, Uranus, sextile, trine. And let's see what happens. I'm not going to bother to interpret that right now, but let's jump over to her 7th harmonic chart. And we'll see that she has, there's that Mercury, Saturn, Uranus, sextile, trine. It shows up in the 7th harmonic chart as well. But it tells you right here, using this feature of Sirius, that says, it might be hard to read on the small video that we make for the tutorials, but that says 1/3, easier to read on the actual program. This says 1/6, and this says 1/6 right there. So that's just telling you, reminding you that that's actually just what we saw in the natal chart. Now, the orbs that you use in harmonics may not make sense if you've just been exposed to this for the first time. But you use 16 degrees for a conjunction, and that may sound like a lot, but everything's been blown up 7 times, or magnified 7 times, and it really amounts to an orb of slightly over 2 degrees in the natal chart. Well, I don't want to confuse you with a lot of fancy, dancy mathematics, but the point is, we use a 16-degree orb, and the Venus and Mars are, it tells us here, they're in some 7th, there's so many of them, it says 2 of these are 1/7, and others 3/7, 2/7. The Venus and Mars are very closely in one of these 7th aspects, or we just say 7th harmonic, meaning the denominator is 7. And from 22 to 2, it's about 10 degrees for Venus, and 14 degrees from Mars to Uranus, so they're all within orb. She has a Venus, Mars, Uranus. The Venus, Mars in 7th harmonic, and Uranus aspecting it a little bit weaker, is very common for people in areas like ballet, skating, classical music, because the rhythm and excitement and passion of Venus, Mars is controlled and disciplined and mature. So they incline towards classical, controlled, more formal styles. And sure enough, she's, excuse me, boy, she is a Olympic champion skater. So that's part of her taste for what she does and part of her talent. She also has Sun, Jupiter, and Neptune in a closer 7th harmonic pattern. Again, 1/7, 2/7, and 3/7 aspects, showing that her idealism, her dreams, she has big goals and dreams and visions, but based on a deep, more introverted, way, and she expects to practice. So she becomes a superstar at a very early age, actually, through that, again, practice. So there's something similar about being a champion in different sports where you're practicing, and getting that execution perfect. So we see a little bit of that there. Now, another harmonic that shows up, and this is the one that sort of pushes Michelle over the top, is the 35th harmonic. And the way that this works is we can go back to Michelle's chart, and we can call up harmonic chart. We can look at her 5th harmonic, which is creativity and playfulness, and 35, which is a combination, it's 5 times 7, and it is mature creative expression. So 35 is especially important for classical or controlled artistic expression. So the 35 ends up being probably a little more important for skating than it would be for tennis, because it's more clearly an art form and a creative form. In tennis, you've got to get the ball back over the net. It's not so much, your style or, you're dancing around or whatever. If you can get the goal over the net and the other person doesn't hit it, you win. So it's a competition. It's not a theatrics. So you're going to succeed based on your ability to win. Whereas skating involves performance and an artistic element. It's not just about beating the other guy. In fact, you don't even directly compete against another person. You indirectly do by the judges' scores, but you put on a performance. So 35 becomes very important for things like musical expression that's controlled and dignified, or ballet, or ice skating of the style that she does. And 5th sometimes is important, just because it's a creative endeavor. And here's her 5th harmonic chart. It's as I expect, has some important patterns. But I want to show you the 35th harmonic, and we see a huge pattern. Wherever we see big red lines, we know we have a huge pattern. So some harmonic charts are just not that important. Michelle has this giant 35th harmonic pattern with that Sun Jupiter, which are actually 1/7, show up again in the 35th. This is a little bit advanced, but basically don't get overwhelmed by the numbers. If you don't like math or whatever, don't worry. Just realize that this is a chart of elegant creative expression. Imagine having a chart that tells you about elegant, controlled, masterful creative expression. Could there be such a thing? Well, it sounds crazy, but in harmonic astrology, we actually think, or I think anyway, that this chart tells you that. And since Michelle Kwan does that to an extreme as an Olympic champion, we expect it to be strong. Sure enough, we see 2 planets, huge red lines, huge red line, 2 more fat red lines, just a giant, enormously powerful exact pattern. You won't see many charts with big fat red lines, which means hard aspects, which are the most important in a sense, or the most dynamic. Well, big green lines can be very powerful too when you have a lot of them, as we saw with Steffi. So here we have Sun Jupiter indicating a largeness, a greatness, a big expressiveness, but controlled and creative. This classically elegant expression. Square Uranus for the excitement in the moment, the music. It's like a dance. The Jupiter-Uranus indicating enthusiasm. The Sun-Uranus, the spontaneity, the quickness, the twirls, the flips. And then Mercury is opposite this. Showing, her understanding, her ability to express, her movement. So she has this huge pattern. Moon comes over and trines the Sun Jupiter, giving more grace and flow. She's got her Sun and Moon, and all of this right at 10 degrees. This is we call a sesquiquadrat, so it's you add 15, it's 9 to 10 degrees, 24 to 25. Anyway, they're all fat lines. I don't want to overwhelm you with the math behind it, but basically you just look for the fat lines. And so basically what I'm saying here is that with the harmonics, I know that there's a lot of information, you can actually feel and sense who the person is. You don't have to keep guessing and have a million different possibilities, for everything. It gets pretty clearly defined. So this is the excitement, the enthusiasm, the grace, the quickness, the sharpness that she has with this. So we basically can see the person in the chart. So that's what harmonics is about. Having this feature of being able to see what the aspect is in the natal chart is extremely helpful. We can see that this Mercury-Jupiter is actually a 1/8 aspect, also known as a semi-square. The Sun-Mercury is a 1/56th. And as you get more advanced in the harmonic methods, you know how to take that into account a little bit more to get even more detail. But basically you know if it reduces down, just to know if it's in other charts as well. So there you go. I'm going to show you one more thing where I saw something surprising. One of the most important harmonic charts is the 8th harmonic chart. And if I go to her natal chart and I go to harmonics and I type 8, we see that Mercury, Saturn, Uranus shows up as a grand trine, and it tells us that they're 1/6 and 1/6 and 1/3. Those sextiles and trines in the natal chart show up over and over again in these magnified charts called harmonic charts. But in addition to Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter's involved through that 1/8. So you end up with a Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus. Indicates very developed Mercury, because it's modified by Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. Jupiter, Saturn is sense of business, structure, strategies, designs. Mercury, Jupiter, enthusiastic, able to take on difficult problems. So I look at this and I think, my gosh, she's really intelligent. She could be an academic. What is she doing skating around all day? This is a very, very well-developed Mercury as well. I mean, skating requires intelligence, but this also indicates, a tendency to be scholastic to some extent. So I went to the website to read about her, and it says here, now she was born, if I go back to series, she was born in 1980, okay, summer of 1980, and here at Wikipedia, just reading about her, in June 2009, so she's about 20, almost 29 years old, she got a bachelor's degree, so she went back to school a little bit later, instead of, getting her degree when she's 22, she's 29, because she's an Olympic skater, so she's busy with other things. And then she goes on, in 2009, she begins her graduate studies after graduating with the bachelor's, in the School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University, graduates in 2011. So I guess she got a master's degree, is what it sounds like, in 2011 in international relations in the School of Law and Diplomacy at a very good university, Tufts University. So why would somebody who's an Olympic champion, has endorsements from all these companies, can make tons of money just using her name and so on, or become a coach and continue in that field? She goes on into a law school, basically, diplomacy and law, gets a degree in international relations. It makes sense. The only thing that I was surprised by is why international relations? And if I go back to her chart, when I think of international relations, I think of the 9th harmonic, because the 9th harmonic has to do with building relationships, understanding, especially cross-cultural. So I can go back to her natal chart, select her 9th harmonic, And in her ninth harmonic chart, here's the Mercury-Uranus-Saturn. Now it shows up as an opposition, and it ends up part of a kite, what we call a kite pattern, with a grand trine, and the Mercury-Saturn-Uranus right down the middle. So there's that heavy thinking, now picking up the Sun and Pluto. So it's a Sun, Saturn, Pluto, serious, focused, trying to do something really important that gets to something beyond all the fluff and glamour of stuff, and do something really important to build healing and relationships. She can problem solve, she can go to the university, get that master's degree, and that's what she does. So she does in fact have that ninth harmonic pattern that makes sense. Now this, I read what she does, and then I saw it in the harmonic chart. When I saw the eighth harmonic chart, I was looking at the chart, and then I expected a certain behavior. So this is how it works. You can, in astrology, you can feel like you're rationalizing anything. If you don't really believe in harmonics, or you don't believe in astrology at all, you might just say, this guy's just making stuff up. And that's why we do a lot of research to try to confirm, even beyond this more qualitative sort of studies. And just to give you another idea of what we do with the harmonics, I'll show you a study I did on gold prices, where I don't know much about economic things. I'm not an expert, but I figured, gold must have something to do with people investing for the long term. It's kind of a seventh harmonic thing, which is the long term. It's mature. It's not a quick money kind of thing. And gold is, it's lasting, it's permanent. You say heart of gold. It has all those seventh harmonic qualities of depth and being important, and Sun supposedly rules gold. Anyways, I thought Sun and Jupiter in seventh harmonic might relate to gold prices. I did a study, and prices of gold statistically are higher when Sun and Jupiter are in seventh harmonic. So we do studies with harmonics that are also quantitative, and this is a paper on our website. That's the URL if you want to go there. I have a whole bunch of papers, and this is pretty sophisticated stuff. Shows some advanced features of Sirius, where we can do correlations of actual prices with predicted prices. And here's an analysis of some of the statistical problems with forecasting, and this is a demonstration of those statistical problems using SAS statistical software. And down here we use the R statistical software to produce some results, and we see our p-values, statistical significance, and some fancy diagrams that show our confidence levels. So here's the R code that was used to generate this. So we also do sophisticated statistical things as well. That may not be of any interest to most astrologers, but to some it may be of interest. And so we do approach these issues from many angles and to verify what's going on. So that's a little introduction to harmonic astrology. I hope you didn't feel completely overwhelmed. You can look at harmonic charts in just about any of the software programs, and the harmonic chart is key. You must select what we call harmonic orbs, which I don't have time to completely explain, but they're proportionate to the harmonic. It's all based on wave theory. And a very helpful feature that we have in Series 1.3 and in some earlier versions of Sirius that I can't live without because I use this stuff, is this ability to see, while I'm right here, what the actual aspect is. So I can see that this Sun-Saturn is 5/27ths, this Saturn-Pluto is 2/27ths, the Sun-Pluto is 7/27ths. So I know that this Sun-Saturn-Pluto is truly a 27th harmonic pattern. There aren't any trines or ninth, ninth wouldn't show up that way, but could be a trine in the natal chart, possibly maybe some other aspect. And so I know whether I'm looking at that trine in the natal chart or I'm looking at the actual, it's actually just only in that harmonic. And that's very handy. It's very nice to know that. So, and it helps with your interpretation, because if it's a trine in the natal chart, it really doesn't pick up all the meanings of the harmonic, because it's really just a trine in the natal chart. Whereas these really are trines in the ninth harmonic. Well, anyway, it would take, a number of classes and dozens of hours to really perfect our understanding of this, but that's an introduction. And these are also seminars on the Sirius software. And harmonic charts are harmonic charts, so you don't need any specifically Sirius, although it does have this one nice feature of seeing what the aspect is in the natal chart right there. See those sextiles, these oppositions are actually 1/6, 1/6, and that's nice to know. It's not really Mercury, Saturn, Uranus only in this chart. It's just picking up what's already in the natal chart. Okay, well that's it. I'm at 36 minutes, which is enough for one seminar. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it wasn't overwhelming with all these crazy numbers and everything. Bottom line is, we have charts that tell you about different areas of life. We have a fifth harmonic, will tell you about your creativity. Seventh harmonic will tell you about your discipline. Then you can even combine those. 5 and 7 is 35, which becomes disciplined creativity. Ends up being things like ballet and ice skating and classical music. It's fantastic. You have all these different harmonics that tell you about the different areas of life. You see the patterns and you interpret them. It's a whole different world of ideas that aren't usually used. So there's all these different areas of astrology, and if you're not into harmonics, then you just don't use that part of the software. The software is just a resource to let you access all these different things. Okay, I'm done. I think I'm getting repetitive. Sorry. All right. Hope you enjoyed that. Take care. I'll be making some more videos on other topics. Okay, bye for now. Namaste.